It's part 3 of Godless Tactics Abridged. In the previous part, we snuck down to bypass all of the rebel stuff and take their capital, thus conquering them instantly. We then went back to our starting island to clear up some mess that had occurred since I left. That gave me enough money to teleport up to the front lines, ready to turn this war around, and immediately when I landed, we're being attacked by someone. But for this battle, we have a nearby allied party to support us, so they control one corner of the map here, and they've got plenty of soldiers to spam forwards and distract the enemy and maybe even defeat some of them as well. We'll start off here with a slightly godless tactic, pulling this switch boost to allow this DPS class to boost my duelist, giving them extra attack, which allows them to kill the nearest enemy in one hit, which we couldn't have done without the switch, so it's ever so slightly godless. You had to think of two things instead of one. Here's a straight up lucky roll, took a 50% chance to kill this guy and got it. And now we can see our allies starting to help out. Some of them have come over to engage with my party on the left. The rest of them are just going to charge up the right. The allied AI is pretty gung-ho when they help you out. They tend to just run at the enemy. And that should do some business for us. We're actually getting some damage on enemies, and it doesn't really matter if our side takes casualties. We can buy back their soldiers if we want, and they'll respawn over time as well by taking resources from the settlement they belong to. Overall, a perfect distraction for us. We'll let them do their thing and won't pay too much attention to that right hand side. On the left, we get an early kill on the enemy commander. This gives them a skill debuff to all of their soldiers, so they all get 10% worse chances for stuff. Here, Two Phones, even using a protection loadout, a weapon that's not really meant to do damage, absolutely annihilates that enemy. Breakers tend to have low health, so sometimes you can kill them in unexpected ways. Here was a situation where I want careful hands to stand where my ally is, down and right of that enemy. So there you go, sometimes it is annoying to have allies around, they stand in the way and stop you doing optimal things. Here is a new godless tactic to look at. The first part is a sync watch, which we did see before. This allows Offid to take part in fights against the two enemies next to him and just do some supporting damage. We can get a couple of attacks out of him this turn and make sure we take down those enemies before they attack us, avoiding the risk of taking any damage, which is always the name of the game. We're doing pretty well at that so far. Looks like Two Hands again smashes someone to death with a shield or something. Good job. For the remaining enemy nearby, we can't use the sync watch to attack him. Or can we? Here's the godless part. We can pull a switch on Offid to move him down. Now his range is different. He's going to range one tile lower, so he can hit this enemy soldier if we try and attack that guy and trigger the sync watch. So there we go. We're going to get even more supporting attacks out of Offid. If you use that very widely, you can move your most powerful characters around during their off turn, and they'll keep attacking using Sync Watch, allowing you to use weak characters to do damage with your strong characters. And in this case, we actually missed both of our attacks against that enemy, but luckily the Sync Watch allowed us to kill him anyway. Moving on to the end of the battle, our allies lost a few of their troops over on the right hand side, but overall, absolutely fine. We gain a load of resources, and now we're ready to go. We're going to use those resources right away because we can go to the refuge and deploy a combat patrol. This is a party that will move around the area and just fight any enemies it encounters, but we can also use the follow feature to make them follow me specifically for a bit. So we now have 5 turns where that party will just go wherever we go. We can use that to our advantage. I thought we'll just spam down and attack this nearby enemy fort. However, it's a 2-star battle, and I'm in absolute laziness mode because I just decided to say, no, I'll attack the party outside first, kill them on their own because that's just easy, and then we'll fight the fort next turn. This is suboptimal because it's better to take the enemy stuff fast, it's gaining resources and power for the enemy while they have it. But it saves real life time to not have to fight one enemy to get the auto-resolve save. Even with the game making it really easy for me to do that, I'm still not doing it. I hate playing games. We've unlocked now an important reputation reward, one that gives you more battle commendations for fighting. Still need to save up for 100 of those to get my even better auto-resolve mode activated. Our allies stop following us because there was a time limit on that, and I rush off from that area down a big road to the east to engage the next group of enemy settlements. We encounter a town where it's a 2-star battle, And for this one, I decided to do something cheeky just for fun. There's a second entrance to the town on the edge of the map, and I've sent one character to go and enter the town over here, hoping to take that base near the edge. The enemy actually saw me though and sent a couple of characters to fight me. Luckily, this scout is actually pretty good. I've got a crafted polearm equipped, which boosts your skill, so they're very unlikely to take any hits. Even though they're generally a weak class, we can get away with it by just standing here and not allowing the enemy to do any damage with that polearm. Standing in a bush, as I did there, also decreases their chance of doing damage. Meanwhile, our real party is coming up the front road to the town to grab some kills and actually end this battle at some point. Gonna pull off another Godless tactic, using boost to increase movement range. Whenever you boost a character, they can move an extra tile, and keeping that in mind, you can sometimes get extra attacks in that wouldn't have been possible, like that one. Offid can rush further ahead than usual, and kill that enemy stalwart who was weak to his magical attacks instantly. That's what we like to see. Then in the enemy turn, they don't attack my scout on the right. That's because they can't. I mentioned this in the first part. On hard difficulty, if they're extremely unlikely to damage you, they won't try in order to avoid you counter-attacking them. So our scout is safe, captures the base, gaining some bonus experience and resources, and then I can use the base to immediately withdraw them, thus avoiding the growing danger as like 5 enemies were over there. Absolutely perfect. Those 5 enemies are now far away from where the real fight's going to be happening, up at the front of the town. We kill a couple of enemies, then auto-resolve the rest. Now we can turn this town into an AML base. Places that can become bases are usually by water. That's roughly the rule. It's supposed to be places that can be supplied by river, so you can ship in reinforcements to these locations. Well, this is a base now. We don't really need it in this case, but we can use it to more rapidly take over the local area. We can spend some resources to do this stage attack thing. We saw this in a previous part. We can also grab new party members. There is a limit of 10 party members in battle at a time, so having reserves isn't always helpful, but it does make you more powerful in auto-resolves and allows you to have replacements if somebody dies in battle. So I spent some money to get some parties on the field that will now go around and help us take over this area. I also brought the garrison of that town with me. We're going to have no defenses there to make our attacks easier. We don't really have to do this in a meta sense. Spending money to more thoroughly take over this area and more powerfully secure it won't actually benefit us in the long run because of my plan for what we're going to do in this campaign, but we'll come to that later in case you don't know what I'm referring to, no spoilers. We charge on forwards and take the most important settlement in this area, the city New Wylie. Now our allies will do a decent enough job of defending this area for themselves because they have some settlements to get supplies from and deploy parties from. We immediately take down these guys who come in for a counter-attack, and we're stacked up with allies so we can do that one for free. I moved further down the road. There was a supply depot here that the enemy have come out of to block us. We can go around behind them and I could just capture it, but you can't capture and fight on the same turn. Although what we could have done here is capture it and then see if the enemy attacked us and got themselves killed. Because when you've just taken a settlement, the AI becomes momentarily much more suicidal and tries to take it back off you. Well, they might have attacked, it doesn't really matter. We advanced is what I'm saying. There were some things to think about, they don't matter too much. Here was an odd scenario though. At this same supply depot, I was sitting here building up a force and the enemy have queued up to attack. Now we've got this huge enemy column on the road. I can spend a bunch of reputation, actually losing a reputation reward, to ask everybody to follow me out to engage them. It's a 2-star battle. We probably could auto-resolve that, and if we do take casualties, they might just statistically end up among our allies and they wouldn't matter. But I'm playing this extra safe and trying to avoid casualties entirely, not necessarily required to play the game, but it's how I'm doing it. We charge on in and really we don't have to do anything. We could just sit back and let our allies run out there and get killed. They'd probably do enough damage to get us that auto-resolve save. Well, I also went across this river with them to attack, and there's the auto-resolve save. I actually kept playing after this, only because I wanted to grab a bit more experience on Offid in particular to make sure our party leader is high level. We can do a sync watch there to land a bunch of attacks on nearby enemies, that's all good stuff. Towards the end of my turn now, I've got all the extra experience I can gain for manually fighting this turn. I could go and fight the next turns to get even more experience, but I don't care enough. we're going to auto-resolve while our allies are fighting the enemy, another tenuous situation that you'd think could crash a game, but it doesn't crash this one because it's so well programmed, of course. And there we have it. We've taken down a massive amount of that queued up enemy force. There were casualties among our allies, but that doesn't really matter. We gained tons of money, and we gained enough reputation from winning that battle to make back the losses incurred asking those guys to come with us to the battle. Then some more of our stronger allies run down the road and annihilate the back of that column quickly, all looking good. There are still enemies swarming all over the place, but as mentioned, that doesn't truly matter to us. Our goal in a meta sense is really just to gain experience points for my route through the campaign. I don't need our allies to control this area, I just need to do lots of battles to gain resources and experience. That said, the best way to get experience is to do hard battles and look for things you can do that will give you experience modifiers due to the battles being large. But because I'm really lazy, I'm going out of my way to fight the easiest battles possible so that I don't have to do them. This is just a weakness of me as a player, but it's still pretty functional in this game because it was programmed with playing like that slightly in mind for some reason. Here's my actual goal. There's a castle called Frida Isle down the road in front of me, and to the north of that up a river is this citadel, Swomesh Labrin. Those two locations are high level, defendable places, and my general thought was I'll take these two locations, build them up, and just leave that as the front line. That will stall the war for a bit as Yumba spends tons of time trying to take those heavily guarded places back, and then we can go off and do what we need to do. So we advance down towards first Frida Isle, some guys come out of the castle and then are teamed up with this offensive combat patrol. 2 fighters, I've brought some allies myself, but it's still a 3-star battle and this time I'm going to have to actually do it. Playing the game. Fortunately, having allies on the field makes this battle much easier than it would do based on just their strength because of their tactical uses. We're down in the bottom right hand corner of the map here, killing a few enemies. There are lots of enemies on the field, but only a few of them are down here in front of my force, so we have the local advantage, and we have better weapons and higher levels and stuff, so we're just going to storm through, kill tons of enemies and secure this area. And the reason that's possible is because at the top end of the map, our allies are distracting the better part of the enemy force. Our allies only have a few troops here, and they're lower or similar in level to the enemies. So they fight each other for a bit, and our guys definitely get the worst of it. They're essentially being wiped out. But with so much of the enemy force committed to doing this, I was having a nice, luxurious time on the other side of the map. An absolutely perfect use of sacrificable allies, and they did actually kill some of the enemies as well, making the fight easier later. And then you can see the enemy decided to plow on through our allies' position to go and take my bases on the left side of the map. That's really a waste of their time, because I'm moving up through their bases on the right side of the map, taking out the stragglers that are stuck back here on their own. That means constant low-risk engagements where we can just charge in and quickly get kills, and the enemy party will be chipped away at. We did kind of come together in the middle after a while as the two sides coalesced at the north end of the map. Now a more considered fight needs to happen because they might actually start attacking us. If 2 enemies, say, can attack you in a given turn, there's a very real chance of you losing a party member. I'm making it look very easy, of course, because I'm just hand selecting fights where we're almost guaranteed not to lose any troops. But if you hadn't been so diligent about getting good equipment and using boosts and stuff, there would be some risk here. Feels like we're fine. Here's a glitch as far as I can tell. I was able to capture a base that belonged to my allies apparently, but after capturing it I then couldn't use it, so I don't really know what's going on. I shouldn't have been allowed to capture it, I don't think, and if I could capture it I should have been able to use it. Well, who knows what's going on. We actually don't get auto-resolve safe in this battle, and it's because all of our allies are dead. The reason is the algorithm that works out auto-resolve takes into account party size, and if your party size has gone down to 0, and that gets used in a division operation anywhere in the algorithm, that would break it using a division by 0 error. So there are things in place that change the algorithm and simplify it in cases where a party that is all dead is present in the fight, and this essentially messes things up, so we weren't able to get an auto-resolve at the end, even though we should have. Well, it's a rare circumstance that's just sort of hacked around in the code. I don't know how I know that, of course. In this case we actually encountered it, didn't matter too much. We got attacked by another wave of enemies there, that didn't do too much to us. I was going to attack the castle now, but a strike team has showed up and is standing right outside the castle. We have intel on them though. The intel is available because they spawned near us effectively. And the intel tells us they're going down the road behind me, so I can step back to allow the road junction to be open. Then they'll walk past me and I won't have to fight them. If they take something back there, that's going to be the AI's problem from now on. We're focusing on this area. And indeed, it all works out. Some guys stacked up to attack me, but they don't make the attack because it would have been too difficult for them. We just run past them all and take the castle. That's what I really wanted. We get a reputation reward here, Inspire Allied Resistance. This means all allied settlements get resources a bit faster. Each settlement has a resource count, and that determines what parties they can deploy. Essentially, more allies will be put onto the field from now on, and there are further blanket buffs we can get by having more reputation later on. Right now, I'm going to splash out and spend all the resources I made winning all those battles recently to get a nice allied defensive force in the area. I've leveled up this castle and spammed out a whole load of combat patrols. These guys will move throughout the area around the castle and just fight any enemy parties they find. They'll only disappear if there are no enemy parties left in a certain radius. So while this area is an active fighting zone, these high-level combat patrols will just go around killing people, and if they're high-level enough, they shouldn't take any casualties doing that and will survive on and on to keep killing more enemies as they come by. So that's something of an active defensive shield now acting in the area. We'll also have the castle's garrison at high level as well. Once that area is somewhat secure, we can start moving north towards my other goal, the citadel, making money along the way, because the more money we have right now the better. We're investing in allied settlements quite a lot and trying to make somewhat long-term defensible locations, and that does just take a whole bunch of money. There's the Meshmedin Field Army you might have seen. They've got a massive force nearby, not really doing anything. We hack our way north, taking settlements along the way. We soon arrive at Swomesh Labyrinth. It's going to be a 2-star battle here though, so I'm going to end up fighting this one begrudgingly. It does give us a chance to see a different kind of map. All the different settlement types have a different map pool. The citadel ones tend to be ones that are easy to defend and are awkward to attack. So we have this maze-like map where there are stakes everywhere that slow you down and debuff you if you stand on them. Ideally you want to jump over them, but it takes quite a lot of movement to do it. It does disadvantage the enemy too, because it makes it hard for them to counterattack, of course. And we can make use of a mechanic mentioned earlier. The fact that boosts give you extra movement points allows us to boost people standing in front of the spikes and then effectively just jump over them. It's kind of simulating somebody throwing you over or giving you a literal boost over some obstacle. Once we're on the other side, the enemy are still not high level enough to have reached the 3rd tier of equipment, so we're much stronger than them individually, and the maze-like aspect of this map makes them slow to deploy against us because they're all running about all over the place. It was actually pretty easy to attack despite supposedly being a defensive map. Well, whoever designed this stuff just didn't know what they were doing, I expect. I sent one team to capture the middle of the map where there's a base and a nice garden area, and as you can see, we're absolutely slaughtering everybody. Having better equipment does make a big difference by giving you extra skill and attack, and being a higher level makes a big difference as well. Our other team kind of got stuck in an awkward position, and I just stopped attacking with them because I didn't really need to. I just left them where they were, rather than risk going out into awkward choke points where we might get attacked. Looks like the enemy are trying to kill us and failing. This is the sort of behavior that the AI is supposed not to do, but it will sometimes do it in 2 situations: if it has absolutely no other choice, or if the star rating of the battle is low. The AI is genuinely programmed to act worse just to make the battles go faster, because even if it was playing better, you'd probably win anyway if you have a giant advantage. Now that's some extremely considerate programming. So now that we've captured this location, we can make it into an AML base to allow us to deploy invasions from it if we want, and we'll start building up its defenses by getting some money. Here was a great chance to get some money. A supply train on its own was just wandering on a road nearby, giving us tons of resources for taking them down. The goal will be to make both Swomesh Labyrinth and the castle down south really hard to take, and the AI will waste tons of resources making invasion forces that run in and just die, and then they'll just have to spend those resources again, and this will massively stymie their momentum in this area. This isn't the only front line, it's not the only place where they're pushing, but it's one of the big ones, so if we can just stop the enemy here, this effectively ends the soft time limit on the campaign where you'll eventually game over just because your allies got completely destroyed. Although, as we'll mention probably in the next part, this isn't necessarily the best strategy for how we want to play this campaign in the long run. There's some news coming in that the enemy are going to make a push against Swimesh Labrin with some of their field armies. These are the big, powerful parties that spawn quite rarely from unique locations and are just really good, so once they go somewhere, they'll probably take it, and they usually attack heavily defended locations. They've got multiple field armies far away to our northeast that will gradually be walking towards my new base to take it. It'll take them a while to actually do that. Maybe I could get enough money to build the base up to the point when it couldn't be taken even by a powerful field army. Well, it doesn't actually matter that much in the long run, again, as we'll talk about next time. As for me, while this area still isn't completely secure, we don't need to secure it. We're going to start doing the next phase of my overall plan. That is to run off on our own. We'll leave the fighting happening here and just move east. The next thing we need to do is complete an objective that was in the missions menu called something like Approach the Yumba Core. This just means we need to go deep behind enemy lines. We don't necessarily need to fight the enemy on the way. We can do it just to get experience and resources and stuff, but I'm probably not going to go out of my way to look for any particularly interesting battles. The goal is just to rush forwards, and once I've done that, you'll see why that's the goal and why it's important to not really care too much about the war until after I've actually gone through with that part of the story. All this and all the things I keep hinting about will likely become very clear, if you don't know what I'm talking about already, in the next part, so why don't you join me there to see what's actually going on with this.